Today, we're looking at a blue-black ink by Callifolio Bosphore. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, there's timestamps down below so that you can skip around, but if you got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, if you're interested, you can follow me on Instagram, and if you're new here, I would invite you to subscribe. In order to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into the Nimicine Fission with a broad nib, wrote with it for a day, and used it to take the notes for this video. This first writing sample is done with a standard set of paper, Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. Now, there are additional writing samples that will occur later. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it comes in a vial like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shading. Now the extra fine is a little lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, and some very nice shading that's going on. The starts lighter, gets darker. Quick starts darker, gets lighter, and gets darker again. Fox goes from dark to light to dark. Very nice stuff. 8 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, about the same tone as the stub. It has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no real shade. 11 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine, far left to far right, does show some color variation. So does the medium a little bit, although the medium didn't get any in the writing. Tomoe River. No bleeding, normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1, no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some shade spots. Look at how quick goes from lighter to darker. Brown goes from darker to lighter. Over is certainly lighter as a word than the word the right next to it, and 14 seconds to dry. Now, medium is darker than the extra fine, about the same tone as the stub. No feather spread, halo sheen or shade, and 20 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show no color variation, although there is in the extra fine. Rhodia. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some shading, like Fox goes dark to light to dark. Lazy starts dark and works its way light. Over starts light and works its way dark. 9 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, about as dark as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, and no real shading in the writing. 12 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine, far left to far right, same with the medium, don't really show the color variation, although the extra fine we do get it in the writing sample. I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And you see that that blue really does push immediately up the page, and it leaves a very, very dark blue line across the top. The one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And very noticeably, that blue line on the bottom, it's darker as a blue, but I believe it's the lighter of the two blues. And when it pushes all the way up, what looked like a very dark blue in the first one looks a little bit more like it's some black to me. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it might be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I wouldn't use it in a note-taking situation because of the amount of feathering that's going on in the G and the blowout of the lowercase h. Really, it's the blowout that entirely stops me from using an ink. And if I was to highlight, water is lifting some of the darkest tones. It's not really getting everything off the page. It's leaving a lot of that blue behind that we saw in the second chromatography. Now, pen flush is doing about what water did, but nothing more. Not really sure that pen flush is going to do everything that you need here. The 1/3 bleach solution does, in only 30 seconds, completely remove it from the page. Now, it did slightly discolor the page a yellow tone, but I think if you had to use the 1/3 bleach solution, it quickly goes in and quickly comes out of your pen, and then you immediately flush your pen with water to make sure you don't rust your metal bits. I test ink viscosity or flow by using a tilt test, and I'll link that somewhere here. And for the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Put the data onto a bell curve or standard deviation for it to be easily understood. Callifolio's Bosphore has a viscosity of 1.72, making this a wetter ink. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average those, and what I found is the average dry time is 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Callifolio's Bosphore has a average dry time of 12 seconds, making this a faster drying ink. Instead of finding inks that look like Callifolio's Bosphore, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page, and I wanted a nice magenta. I went with Krishna's Brown Pink. The second writing sample is done on Life, Viscosity, and Franklin Christoph paper. Here we're looking at Life paper. Now on Life paper we get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is a bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, but it does offer some shading. Like if you look it over, it goes from lighter to darker. The from lighter to darker. So it's nice, it's there, it's much more subtle with this tone paper. 7 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, about the same tone as the stub. With no feather spread, halo sheen, it has some shading here. Like quick starts dark, gets lighter, gets darker. Over starts lighter to darker. Brown goes darker to lighter, just a little bit lighter. 11 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both don't really show us much color variation, although we do get some in the writing. Viscosity notebooks. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine has no feather spread, halo sheen, and only a couple spots where it's coming through darker, like the K in quick, the Z in lazy. The word the looks a bit darker than the word over. But there's not a lot, but it's definitely there. 6 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and again, hints in spots of shading, like the K in quick is much darker than what's around it. And the W to N in brown is a bit lighter than the rest of the word. So there's some there. There's just not a lot because of how dark it's coming through. Now 9 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both shows no color variation, although we do see it in its subtleties in the writing. Last up, Franklin Christoph. No bleeding, no ghosting, keep it on the camera. 1.1 is no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is a bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, more shading spots, like the K in quick, the T in the is a bit lighter. Over starts light and gets dark. Fox goes from dark to midtone to dark. It's a bit nicer here. I think the color of the paper is really helping to bring it out. 3 seconds to dry. Medium is much darker than the extra fine, about the same as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. 6 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both don't really show color variation, but the extra fine did have some, and that is all that I have for the writing sample. So what do I think of Callifolio's Bosphore? This is a great blue-black for those of us that love blue-black inks. And when I was writing on textured paper, it strangely made that textured paper feel a little bit smoother to write on. So there's an added bonus. I don't know what's causing it. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience here? I found that a medium flow fine pen really put down a nice blue that shaded to black in the writing, which was awesome. If you've made it this far, and according to my analytics, 50% of you aren't, and you enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up. If you are not subscribed, I would invite you to subscribe, and thanks for watching.